Hello everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films, and we watched the end of the Chonka home movie reel. We didn't see all of it, we saw a lot of it, but yeah, home movies are of course very interesting to me because they document part of how we lived, and the camera was at a lot of places, so it saw a lot of things, both of interest and of tedium. And I think what's interesting is you can watch the film and you can feel like, is that my family? And you can start thinking about, it's very voyeuristic, but we don't know anything about the family, and there's no sound, so our brains get to kind of figure out what's going on. So this is why I like to do Home Movie Day at least once a year, and we are going to do one in Raleigh, I believe in late April, early May. So if you're around, I'll let you know when we get closer. Anyhow, behind me I have a film scanner, and we watched 2 episodes, the first 2 parts of Unseen World, which was a ABC 1970 TV, I don't know if it was a series or if it was just one night. And it's narrated by our good friend Eddie Albert, and it is was written by Isaac Asimov, our friend, the sci-fi writer. So this is the final installment. This is Unseen World Part 3. So Part 1 was microscopic photography. Part 2 was time-lapse photography. And what we call undercranking. No, overcranking. Yeah, overcranking, so that when you played it back at real time, it would show slowed down stuff, which easily is my favorite. I love that stuff. This one is, what does it say? It says Oceans of Space. So maybe this is macro photography. All right, let's find out. Enjoy.
A large part of our unseen world is hidden from our eyes by physical barriers. We think of water as being transparent, but consider 10 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by ocean, 2 miles deep on the average, 7 miles deep in spots. We can't see through it. We see only the surface. But underneath that surface is a world of life, the original world of life. It was perhaps 3 billion years ago that tiny bits of life first stirred in the ocean. It was only 300 million years ago that the first life forms, primitive insects, spiders, snails, a few stubby-legged fish, dared to venture into the hostile environment of the dry land. Even today, ocean life is predominant. The plants of the world convert the sun's energy into food and change carbon dioxide into life-giving oxygen. Something like 80% of all the food and oxygen used in this way is formed in the ocean. Where are the plants of the ocean? They are there, tiny microscopic pinpoints of life. The plant plankton present in uncounted millions across the surface of the ocean, crowded into the top 100 feet where the sunlight penetrates. Those tiny cells are the grass of the sea on which ultimately all other life in the ocean depends. Under the microscope, these minute plants take on a jewel-like appearance. They are so small that it takes hundreds of them to stretch across a single inch. But enough of them gather in 1 acre of ocean surface to weigh 5 tons. Though the plant plankton are consumed in enormous quantities, their eternally busy division keeps them ever present in endless numbers, the self-renewing grass of the sea. Not all the plankton are microscopic plant cells. Many are tiny animals that feed on the plant plankton around them. Even larger animals add to the plankton in the earlier periods of their lives. Sea creatures are born of microscopic eggs, usually near the surface, for they too must be near their food supply, the tiny plant plankton. When the eggs hatch and the tiny larval creatures emerge, they are themselves a food supply, for the rule in the sea, as on the land, is that the large eat the small, and the small make up for it by multiplying more quickly than the large. The animal life of the sea exists in wild profusion and in wide variety. There are wonders of weird beauty we never see. The water hides them. There are animals that look like plants, sea anemones with stalks and colorful petals. But they are not green. They make no use of sunlight. And the lovely petals are stinging tentacles that entrap other forms of life. There are slug-like creatures called nudibranchs that look like stalks of bananas. They are only 3 inches long, and what look like bananas are a breathing apparatus. There are worms with tufts of feathers like delicate crowns. There are sea creatures with their life substances so thinly spread, they are transparent. There are other creatures simple enough to reproduce merely by budding. First one individual, then another breaks off from its parent. The object of life here is staying alive. Under the pressure of the drive for food, some sophisticated devices come into use. The anglerfish does what its name implies. It has a fishing rod and a lure attached to itself. The lure quivers like a worm. A small fish can be caught by something as primitive as a sea anemone with its poisoned, writhing tentacles, soft but deadly. It can be caught by something as advanced as a larger fish with streamlined shape that sends it piercing through the water and sharp teeth from which there is no escape. A crab flees from an octopus which coils in pursuit. A lobster is caught by a moray eel whose sinuous body can twist itself into a knot if that is necessary to hold its prey. A huge ray flaps its oversized dorsal fins like wings and flies through the ocean world like a graceful bird. Some of the largest whales and sharks and the manta ray bypass the normal food cycle of the sea and live entirely on enormous quantities of plankton. The ocean of water is not the only ocean on Earth. We ourselves live at the bottom of another one. It is the ocean of air, our atmosphere, which reaches for 100 miles and more above our heads. Plants shoot pollen or seeds into the air, making use of the wind as a highway to spread life. And with them are the particles sent into the air by man himself. Under the microscope, there is strange beauty and color in the fly ash, soot and dust that man's uncaring activity pours into the air. Beauty in deadliness and artistry in death. For our lungs have developed over hundreds of millions of years to deal with relatively clean air. But look higher still, beyond the dust and toward the heights. Water vapor has been drawn up high into the air where it cools and forms clouds of tiny ice crystals. Sometimes the ice particles within a cloud collect, grow larger, and begin to drift downward. If the lower atmosphere is warm enough, they will melt into rain. If it is cold, the collected crystals will remain solid and will fall as snow. Under the microscope, each flake reveals a complex and symmetrical pattern of beauty, a frozen star with 1,000,000 sisters, each with the same six-sided symmetry, but different in detail. It is easy to believe that of all snowflakes ever formed, no two are exactly alike. And beyond the clouds, the vault of heaven, with the bright sun by day, at night the moon, the planets, the stars. For thousands of years, shepherds, travelers, and lovers have watched the night sky, counted the stars, and traced out fanciful pictures among them. No one dreamed they saw so little and left so much, so incredibly much unseen. But the same lenses that can enlarge the small and make a speck of dust into a monolith can, in other arrangements, draw near the distant and make bright the dim. In 1609, the Italian scientist Galileo placed two lenses at opposite ends of a metal tube and pointed it at the heavens. He uncovered an unseen universe, far more vast and marvelous than the new worlds discovered by Columbus a century before. Galileo looked at the moon, and what had been a source of wonder and superstition became a world. It became a panorama of mountains and craters and dark expanses called seas, waterless seas of silence and dust. A strange world without air, without water, without life, brought closer to us, first by better telescopes, and then by more sophisticated rockets, until upon a magic day in July of 1969, men first stood upon a world not their own, and looked back upon a world Galileo couldn't see. Galileo also looked at the sun, protecting his eyes by letting the image flash through the telescope and onto the wall. He saw spots moving slowly along its face. Better instruments have shown us the sun's surface in detail, given us a vision of its marbled heat, and at its edge, against the black of space, the leaping, arching red of its giant flares that lift gouts of ruddy flame as far as 250,000 miles into space. To the naked eye, the planets looked like no more than bright stars. Through Galileo's telescope, these bright dots became recognizable planets. Mars, 35 million miles away at its closest, is a ruddy world with darker areas and with ice caps at either pole. Some astronomers thought they saw straight lines, which they called canals, and dreamed of intelligent life there. But in the 1960s, rockets whizzed close by Mars, took photographs, and revealed an empty world with no canals, little air, and craters as thickly strewn as those upon the moon. Venus is even closer to us than Mars, only 25 million miles away, and shows phases like the moon. Venus is closer than we are to the sun, and its surface temperature is far above the boiling point of water. There is the distant world of Jupiter, 11 times as wide as the Earth, nearly 500 million miles from us, with a great red spot whose nature is still a mystery to us. Saturn, somewhat smaller, nearly twice as distant, looked oddly lopsided in the first telescopes. Improved lenses showed it to be unique, for it had thin, flat rings circling its equator. In all the universe, nothing else like it has yet been seen. Beyond the solar system is the world of stars. Not merely the thousands we can see, at best, with the unaided eye, but stars by the hundreds of thousands, by the tens of millions, by the billions. 1 million stars in a single globular cluster. 100 billion stars in a single spiral galaxy. Between the stars, clouds of dust and gas, bright like the Orion Nebula when lit by stars within that dust, dark like the Horsehead Nebula when there are no stars within and when the dust and gas block the light of the stars behind. Exploded stars, leaving the wreckage of their substance expanding outward for 1,000 years, as in the Crab Nebula. And all these stars together make up our own spiral-shaped galaxy of 100 billion stars. Looking through the long direction, we see it as the Milky Way. And beyond our own galaxy are other galaxies, billions of others. Farther and farther away lie the objects, millions of light years away, with each light year counting 6 trillion miles. How much farther does the universe stretch? Where does it end? Does it have an end? Or do the stars and the galaxies go on forever? As the world of the small may descend forever in narrowing spirals, does the world of the distant large ascend forever in expanding spirals? Do we stand in the middle, looking each way into endlessness? And will some of the universe always remain unseen in each direction, despite all we can do? We can only wonder and speculate, as we must with much of our world that is yet unseen.
Yeah, that was interesting. I still like the second part better. I like the overcranked slow motion footage. So much more interesting to me. Especially throwing a dart at a balloon and spilling that teapot. So when we digitize films, and we've been scanning films for Cornet educational films, we run across different versions. And so we found and showed the first version of Fun of Making Friends. This is the second version. This is the updated version, which could be made in the 60s or 70s. And you might ask yourself, like, why would someone update a film? Well, one of the main reasons is sometimes the information gets old. With science films, that happens, and you have new stuff to talk about. With things that are what I call social guidance films, they change because the way we talk changes, the way we look changes, and also some of the things that the educators want to bring up and talk about change. And so this is kind of an interesting look at what educators wanted to talk about. And I feel like this is a 70s film. Enjoy.
Come on in, everybody. Linda, Paul, get some more chairs.
Hi.
Hi, Nina. Hi, Ramon.
Hi.
Did your mother come?
Here I am.
Hi, Chris. Where's your dad?
Right behind him.
You know, it's really nice to have you all together here. Say, you all remember when we first moved into the big city? Paul and Linda were about the two lonesomest looking things I'd ever seen.
Oh, Dad, we were not.
No, we weren't.
I thought you were. Oh, Nina.
She's right, Linda. I saw you, too. We just didn't have any friends, Chris. I thought you'd be a good friend right off, Paul. You did?
See, you didn't have to be lonesome. You had friends all around.
But we didn't know it then, Dad.
We sure didn't. It was awful not having any friends. You were both gone when I came back looking for you. Where'd we go?
You know, just around, to see the neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, I remember now. Hey, and I remember we didn't like the neighborhood.
Well, we missed all our friends back home where we used to live. We didn't think we'd ever have such good friends again.
But you were wrong.
I'm glad now. But then, well, everything was new and different. I thought the L train was awful, so noisy, and the new buildings going up, so much dirt. And remember that painting?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like it.
It looked funny. I guess we just didn't understand the city then.
Well, you were still small-town kids then. But you've done pretty well since.
The signs really scared us.
Because we couldn't understand Spanish then.
We thought people talked a different language here. We didn't think we'd ever have any friends.
How did you finally meet Chris, Paul?
Well, I think I was just walking down the sidewalk, doing nothing, when Chris came up behind me on his roller skates.
No, I was on my bike. Remember, my chain came off.
Oh, yeah, I remember. I didn't know if I should help you put it back on. I knew how to do it, but I was a little scared of you.
I was a little scared, too. But I smiled at you anyway. I was glad you helped.
Then why did you ride away after it was fixed?
I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, but I came back, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, that's what counts.
You know what I thought when you started talking?
What?
I was surprised you spoke English.
Was that how you two met?
That's how, Dad. I showed him where I lived, and we went to see where he lived.
No, we didn't.
Did you take me to meet some kids in some kind of hiding place?
No, you didn't meet them. We just went past them. Don't you remember? I took you to the gas station where my dad works. Hey, Paul, you remember why I wanted you to go to my dad's gas station?
So you could get some air in your tires?
No, so I could ask my dad if you could borrow my brother's bike.
I was really glad about that. But I don't remember why his bike was there.
So my dad could fix it, and it was all fixed. The tires just needed some air.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was a great bike.
Hey, fellas, you remember what else I did for you?
Something else? You know, Chris?
No. What was it, Dad?
Don't you remember?
Oh, yeah, I do. The football.
Football.
Sure, don't you remember? We found out we both liked football.
Oh, yeah. And we went to get Ramon to play with us, right?
Right, except I didn't know him then.
Is that right, Ramon? Did you meet Paul that first day he moved here?
That's right, Ma.
He really knew how to make friends. 2 friends in one day. That's better than you did, Ramon.
Well, he spoke English, Ma.
Oh, mi pobreio solitario.
But I'm not your poor only son anymore. Ma, I've got friends.
You all looked like very good friends when I met you, Paul.
We were. Sort of.
But I know you were new here, Pa.
You all were really busy making friends that day, weren't you?
That's right. It's no fun being strangers.
Isn't it nice how we're not strangers anymore? Now we're all friends. I think that's very good.
You know, Linda, your mother thought your doll was going to be your only friend until Nina came by.
How come you asked me to go to the library, Nina?
Because I wanted a new friend.
We were glad you came by, Nina. It was nice to see you with a friend, Linda. We sure didn't like seeing you look so sad and lonely.
We had a good time at the library, didn't we?
We sure did.
We had a better time playing football in the park.
No, you didn't.
I think you all had a good time because you all had new friends.
After that first day, we didn't think the big city was so bad.
Yeah, friends really make a difference. Friends make a strange place seem like home. Thank you, friends.
You're welcome, friends.
Oh, what grade are you going into, Nina?
Let me turn on that mic. Yeah, so the first one was set in a suburb where a lot of the Cornet films were set, and actually Encyclopedia Britannica films also set in suburbs of Chicago. So they tend to be more lily white. So this one had more faces of color, which was kind of important because that's who were in school. That's who were watching films, and it was important to see someone that a child could identify with. and so that's what this is about. Yeah, kind of interesting. Bikes, man. I did a lot with bikes. I'm suffering now because of that, but bikes, big fan. Next film about printing, not screen printing, like that awesome film. So I don't think there's going to be any bongos in this one. But what was the name of that film? It's a Screen Printing World. This one's Printing, Future Unlimited. And let me say thank you, Jeremy, for donating via the Super Thanks button. You can donate that way. That will buy us some tape, some hard drives, some shelving units, excuse me, help pay for our rent, etc. You can also go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are other ways to support us. In the meantime, Printing, Future Unlimited. Enjoy.
Forms the very font we know and of what we do. People don't stop to think much about printing. It's like a drink of water, or the gas or a drive into a service station. You buy a newspaper or a magazine and use it. You read a book, think it over, lend it to a friend, or just put it in your bookcase. You fill in a tab, open a cereal box, and ever so rarely, you think about printing. And when you do, what do you think of? Probably a small printing press. Or type. Or maybe you think of the marvelous monsters that turn out your favorite magazine. Plants employing hundreds of men and women. Neither of these pictures is exactly true. The printer today is not just a printer. He's a specialist, a man who knows what he's doing, whether he's a press or a topographer, estimator, a designer, a photo engraver, a binder, a salesman, an executive, a compositor, electrotyper, stereotyper, a technician in silk screen, photogelatin, or collotype processes, a bookbinder, a foreman. He's a well-paid technician and craftsman. In a way, he's a scientist, exploring new fields, developing better methods. These are the men, the communicators, the printers. Each has his own job. Each must make his own decisions. These are the words written by a great author, possibly, or an advertising man, a poet, or a pamphleteer. This is a story someone wants to tell, and the topographer must make decisions. He knows a certain type and a certain size will take up so much space. He knows the meaning of what is written will get across better in one style of type than another. So he makes his choices. How to make it easier to read, how to get the message across. The machine is fast and accurate, but it is only as fast and accurate as the man who operates it. The machine costs over $25,000, but it is completely useless without the skilled, sensitive hands of the typesetter on its keyboard. There is beauty in type. Metal with ink and paper becomes a message. The machines do wonders, but no machine can be set by hand. Men down through the ages have dedicated themselves to type as an art. The unnamed but inventive Chinese, the immortal Gutenberg, Garamond, Estienne, Gill, Gaudi. These men knew type and printing as an art, and even more important, as a way of producing more printing for more people, easier and faster. But it's a long way from apprentice to master. This is his first experience with type. If the A is here, the B must be here. No. Oh, then here. No. No. The B is here. Why? Tradition is part of it. But remember, you'll use more A's than B's, so the A case is nearer the hand and larger. Simple? Still, it's the tradition of centuries of printing that makes a journeyman out of an apprentice. And when that journeyman puts that thin space in, right there, he's a master, a traditional master. But what happens to type when it's been set and corrected? That depends on the printing process to be used, and naturally on the man who's going to do it. It can be photographed and made into lithographic plates, or the type can be locked directly onto the bed of a press, as is. Or reproduction proofs can be pulled. Engravings can be made of it. But once the type is set, engraved, or made into plates, as soon as the press is made ready, the press begins to roll. Small presses can produce 10,000 business cards an hour. Big ones can turn out up to 20,000 48-page metropolitans in the same amount of time. But, again, small or large, machine is nothing without the man. If you're dealing with an ounce of metal in the form of type or 10,000 pounds of complicated machinery, that know your craft, respect it. You treat 5 tons of driven metal like a child. You know you're watchful. You're a pressman, translating the type into reading matter. You're a master printer. What makes a man a master printer? It's know-how, because printing is not just a job, it's a profession that depends more on what you know than who you know. This particular pressman is Milt Leeds, 28. His plant is in Cleveland, Ohio. He took a print shop class at high school about 10 years ago and was snapped up as an apprentice as soon as he graduated. Today, not only is he a craftsman, but he's in the top 1/3 of our country's income groups. The other fellow is the foreman in Milt's plant, Walt Dunlap. He's 29. About 9 years ago, he graduated from the School of Printing Management at the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, where he received his degree in printing management. This one is Stu Colton, 26. He took the print shop course in junior high, liked it, then went to a technical high school for 3 years. After he got out of the Army, where he worked in a mobile printing plant, by the way, Walt hired him, and 4 years later, here he is. These are the men that make the machines work. And the machines, without these men, of course, not everybody in the printing industry runs a machine. Some of the most important jobs are front office. This calm, efficient young man is what is known as an estimator. He has to know everything. How much time is it going to take to set the type? How much time for make ready or making plates? The price of a highlight halftone? Should the job run 2 up on the 1-color press or 4 up on the 2-color? How many hours? Collating and binding charges. Delivery. This is the man who figures it out. The boss gets it, examines it, and takes the price to the client. Meanwhile, back at the shop, the estimator is figuring another job. Now, we'd like to make a rather personal introduction. This is the man we've been referring to as the boss. He's up from the ranks. Started as a pressman, then became a production manager. 3 years ago, he bought a little shop and grew. And now, his troubles are just beginning. But everybody loves to dream about what the future might be. And some do the billing with one hand while they're running the press with the other. One thing, however, is certain. These men, the boss, the pressman, the binder, all of them, doing 2 things that are all too rare. Having fun and making money. What it boils down to is printing is an industry made of real men. Men with their feet on the ground and their heads screwed on straight. Artists, auditors, binders, bookkeepers, cameramen, color correctors, book binders, compositors, copywriters, cutters, electrotypers, estimators, folding machine operators, foremen, gatherers, hand and machine typesetters, layout men, letterers, lithographic pressmen, makeup men, monotype casters and keyboard operators, opakers, photo compositors, photo engravers, plate makers, pressmen, production control men, proofreaders, salesmen, stereotypers, stockmen, stone men, strippers, stitchers, superintendents, owners. And printing is an industry that is growing, an industry with an ever-expanding future. Even with the tremendous demand for printing and the steady growth of the industry, there are still only a little over 750,000 men in the printing trades today. So there's plenty left on the ground floor. The pay is good, and there's no industry with more security. After all, it doesn't seem quite possible that they're going to stop using books, newspapers, advertising, forms, letters, invitations, tickets, signs. The list would take hours to go through. That's a big door. There are thousands of years of history behind it, and a lifetime of success when you go through it. Good luck. Not that you'll need it.
Of course, I'm eating a mouthful of salad. I was expecting there to be a little bit more before that. All right, got another film on the scanner. Here we go. This is Wee Gillis. Enjoy.
Once, long ago in Scotland, there lived a boy named Alistair Roderick Craigalachy Dalhousie Gowan Donnybristle McMac. But that took too long to say, so everybody just called him Wee Gillis. Wee Gillis had come to live with his relatives.
Hello, wee frog. Have you not got a home? Go on, go and find a home.
Down in the low hills lived his mother's relations. They were lowlanders who milked and herded long-haired cows. Up in the high mountains lived his father's relations. They were Highlanders who stalked stags. The Lowlanders thought the Highlanders were very foolish to spy on stags. But the Highlanders thought the Lowlanders were very silly to drive and call and milk their long-haired cows. Wee Gillis didn't know which he wanted to be, a Highlander or a Lowlander. But one day he would have to decide. So for 1 year, Wee Gillis went down into the low hills to live with his mother's relations. Each morning, he rose early. His lowland uncle was happy to have Wee Gillis help herd the cows.
Big lad you've gotten to be, Wee Gillis. You won't be having no problem taking care of the cows.
Shoo, shoo.
Every day, after breakfast, wee Gillis drove the cows out to the field to graze. One day, while wee Gillis was looking after the cows, he saw a piper playing the bagpipes by the loch. Wee Gillis decided to make his own music. Each day he practiced. Now once, when the mist came down, wee Gillis couldn't find the cows to bring them home. He tried to call them, but his voice was too weak, and the cows wouldn't come.
Trot! Trot!
His lowland relations were waiting to milk the cows, and they wondered where he was. At last, wee Gillis returned with the cows.
Sure.
What kept you, my lad?
Cows wouldn't come. Called them and called them. They wouldn't come.
When it's misty like this, they won't hear you unless you shout very loud. Try like this. Trot! Trot! Trot!
Aye, I'll practice.
Each time he had to call the cows through the mist, wee Gillis shouted a little louder than they had before. Now the cows came.
Well done, wee Gillis.
Shouting was good for his lungs. By the end of the year, his lungs had become very, very strong. On the first day of the next year, wee Gillis went up into the high mountains to live with his Highland relations. In the Highlands, wee Gillis also rose early. His Highland uncle was happy to have wee Gillis help stalk stags.
Wee Gillis, a great stalker you'll make.
After breakfast, wee Gillis went out to practice stalking. Sometimes he went stalking with his Highland uncles. Once, after staying still for a long time, wee Gillis couldn't hold his breath. And he frightened away the deer.
What happened, wee Gillis?
I couldn't hold my breath any longer.
If you're going to stalk stags, you'll have to learn to hold your breath much longer. And try like this.
Aye, I'll practice.
So, day after day, wee Gillis would practice holding his breath longer and longer. Holding his breath was good for his lungs. By the end of the year, his lungs had become very, very, very strong. At last the day came when wee Gillis had to decide which to be, a Highlander or a Lowlander. He and his uncles walked and walked until they found just the right hill for deciding. They were not in the lowlands and not in the highlands, just in the middle. And wee Gillis had to choose forever.
Wee Gillis, it's time for you to decide what you're going to be. You're a great stalker. I want you to come and live in the Highlands and stalk stags. It's in the Highlands that you belong.
My wee lad, Gillis, there's not another lad in the country can call the cattle through the mist the way you can. You're a born cowherd.
At first his uncles talked quietly and waited politely for each to finish, but wee Gillis could not decide.
That's not a man's life. You want to come and stalk the stags in glorious countryside rather than herd cattle on a bleak lowland moor.
My wee Gillis, I think you'd be better coming down to live a gentleman's life as a herdsman in the lowlands, rather than jump from rock to rock trying to kill harmless beasts.
I'd stop putting ideas into
Then the uncles' voices grew louder and they didn't wait for each other to finish talking anymore.
Don't be a laviskin deal.
Don't you talk to me in that peasant language. Speak to me in the Queen's
Don't
English.
you talk about that, you Lowland.
You green, long, you can't even wear the breech. You have to wander around in a skirt.
You wouldn't be allowed to wear a tartan anyway.
I wouldn't see dead in a tartan.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
You could hear them shouting all the way up in the highlands and all the way down in the lowlands.
Jack.
The piper had appeared with an enormous bagpipe, which he couldn't blow up.
Let me have a try.
Certainly. Wee Gillis' lowland uncle felt sorry for the piper, so he tried to blow up the bag. But he couldn't.
Think I could do a wee bit better.
Then wee Gillis' Highland uncle tried. He couldn't blow it up either. No one knew what to do. Wee Gillis wished that his uncles would ask him to try, but they didn't.
Would you be wanting to try, then?
Aye, I would.
First, wee Gillis took a deep breath, the way he did when calling the cows in the lowlands. Then he held it, the way he did when stalking the stags in the highlands. Then he blew with all the force in his very, very, very strong lungs. So wee Gillis decided to become a piper.
Bro, havi, hrie, bro, bro.
He practiced and practiced and practiced. Wee Gillis is now welcome in both the lowlands and the highlands, but most of the time he stays in between at his own house and plays the biggest bagpipes in all Scotland.
Yeah, okay, I'll take it. Based on a children's book, Wee Gillis. A little absurd, but there you go. There's the bagpipe music that you were asking for. You can start off your weekend now with that. Thank you for tuning in today. Very much appreciate your eyeballs. And this was a wild and wonderful week, and I'm looking forward to the weekend where I'm not traveling, not going to the doctor, just hanging out. Maybe I'm gonna do laundry and go grocery shopping, because that's what we do sometimes when we're not watching 16 millimeter films. But if you like what you saw, please hit the thumbs up or the like or the subscribe. Those are great ways to support us. You can also support us monetarily with buying us coffee at ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks or via the super thanks button. All those are ways that we will take that money and spend it on things like what are we buying? Cores. These are films will go on these instead of reels. So if we run across a reel that's bent in one of the film cans or is rusted, we will often migrate the film to a core, which is better for the film because it's not being warped in weird ways and is lighter, but is very time intensive. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great weekend. Get some rest, kind of get yourself back into the swing of things post-holiday. We'll see you soon.